The views expressed in this program do not necessarily reflect those of this station.
Welcome to Insights into Northeast Michigan, a WBKB News public affairs program. Insights deals with the issues affecting those in the community as well as Northeast Michigan and the state. And now, Insights into Northeast Michigan.
Welcome to another episode of Insights. I'm here with Jim McCormick, the owner and operator of Canna Atlanta here in Atlanta, Michigan. Right now, the shop is currently closed down as they're awaiting state licensing and township approval. Let's go inside and take a look. All right, Jim, can you show us around?
Sure. This would be our public area that is open to the public. When patients would come in, this is the medroom area.
So this area used to be filled with all the medication, correct?
Yes.
Right now we're here in the medication room of the provisioning center. Normally this room is secured with a lock and key. You have to have a keypad to get in, but we're here right now learning a little bit about what patients do go through. They come in here, they might sit down right here, get advice on the things that they do need to get better. So what normally do patients come in and talk to you about?
Their particular ailments, why they feel like they need medical marijuana, or what symptoms they have that they're trying to combat with the medical marijuana. Many people today are just simply turning to it for pain versus the opiates.
And how many people would you see come through these doors every day?
I don't know every day, but on the busier days, probably 50 people a day.
And these people all come in for various ailments. Would they come in all different ages? Who was a typical person if you even had one?
There was no typical. There was young, old. There is not any real typical. This is a different holistic medication that many people from every walk of life can benefit from.
And now that it is closed temporarily, what would you say to your patients about getting the proper care that they do need?
Well, talk to your officials, talk to the township. In our instance here, Briley Township could have been opted in, so we could also be open under the emergency guidelines. Talk to your state representatives. There are 280-some thousand card holders in the state of Michigan. We have a lot of power if we talk to our representatives.
Your shop and the Dirty Elk were some of the closest dispensaries around, even closest to Alpena. Did you see people coming in all the way from Alpena or farther?
Oh yes, I would say probably 1 in 4, 1 in 5 people were from the Alpena area.
So now that you're closed and the Dirty Elk is closed, people are going downstate to find their medication. How does this place differ than some of the places downstate?
Really no difference. Downstate, it's business as usual, and the northern Michigan climate has not been friendly, at least outwardly, to medical marijuana.
And can you elaborate on how it has not been friendly?
Well, the raids that we experienced here via the hunt team cost both my shop and the Dirty Elk tens of thousands of dollars. They yielded nothing further than public health code violation charges and virtually put everybody out of business.
So would you say maybe fear of being shut down would be another reason there's not so many provisioning centers around?
The gray area of Michigan is still a little bit of a scary area. It would be the fear of the raids until they have everything in black and white, because the Michigan State Police have just demonstrated that they are willing to work in that gray area because it pays them very well.
And how would you go about reopening?
It's my understanding that we will have to have our state license hanging on the wall in order to reopen.
And what steps do you have to take in order to do that?
Well, first of all, there is a 48-page state application that goes along with the $6,000 non-refundable application fee. and up to $57,000 a year for your state licensing, which is one of the other areas that we have concerns with here. Our township would maybe like to see us off of the main drag here, yet we start roughly $60,000 a year in the hole here with our licensing costs.
So what would you like to see change about all of this?
I'd like to see the state get their end of this put together. Let's get this more black and white. Let's stop these raids. Let's treat this industry the way that it should be treated. Michigan voted this in, I believe, by 63%, which is one of the most unanimous votes in recent times for Michigan at all. So obviously the people in the state of Michigan want it. Unfortunately, it's an area where the state police now loses control of an area and a cash cow, so they have muddied the waters and stopped a lot of the forward progress. The state on one hand says, okay, here's your card. We charge you for this, yet we bust the shops that provide the medication to you. So what are these 280,000 people supposed to do? That's why the governor signed the emergency orders. Had our township opted in by December 15th, we could also be open and take care of patients. Since they did not, we can't be open.
So what are some things that you hear your patients say to you?
That they don't know what to do for meds, that they don't want to be trying to buy things off of the black market, and I don't blame them a bit. You know, our products here were tested, they were lab tested. Someone that really knows what's in the product is giving you advice or their particular experience with the product. This way here, you have, again, you know, on a busy day, 50 people a day that used to come here. Where are they getting their meds now?
And do you have any idea personally, do you know any patients that might have to turn to other sources?
Absolutely. We've been contacted by several patients looking for caregivers, looking for other dispensaries that may be close, looking for medication any way they can find it almost. And that's the scary part of this. You know, where did these roughly 100 people a day that came through your two shops, where did they get their meds? From who? Out of the back of somebody's trunk, around a corner, where? That should bother people. That really truly should. To me, it should help them embrace this scenario. You know what's going on in here. We're out in the light of day. You don't know what's going on back there. That's how people get shot. I mean, that's how people die from bad stuff. So
let's talk a little bit about you're waiting for the city's approval.
Currently, we are waiting for Briley Township to opt in to allow medical marijuana entities into the township. Further, we're waiting for the zoning, which defines where these entities can be within the township.
And explain a little bit more, what does zoning mean and what does that entail for you?
Well, for us personally, we'd like to stay where we're at, of course. Our zoning here is the Old Town zoning. And I bought a building here that is capable of being a drugstore, and I need no approval for that, yet I need board approval, state approval, and 48 pages worth of an application to have a medical marijuana facility here.
So it's easier to get a pharmacy than open a medical marijuana shop?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's easier to put opiates out here than it is medical marijuana.
And what do you think that means for the community or business owners?
I don't feel like we need any more opiates. With our county and other counties around joining the lawsuit against the opiate manufacturers, I think it's in black and white that opiates are terribly addictive. They're killing people. This helps people. I don't know of any evidence anywhere that ever had marijuana kill anybody. The same can't be said for alcohol, opiates, and in respect to our zoning, that's our issue, is we feel like opening a bar is just as detrimental to the community. Certainly opening a drugstore, a traditional drugstore, would be more detrimental to the community. but medical marijuana is not viewed that way.
And what would you say to someone who might disagree with you, who says they don't want marijuana on the streets for their kids, or maybe they're calling it a gateway drug?
Well, first of all, this is a medical scenario only. You have went to a doctor and you received a card and a recommendation from this doctor. And it's nothing that we've brought here. It's nothing that these shops have brought here. This was here and it's been here. It's just now in the light of day and legal.
All right, is there anything else you would like to say?
Well, my hope for the future and the future of this industry, both the business side of it and the patient side of it, is that the state gets their guidelines together and that the black cloud and the aura comes off of this and people recognize and realize that it is a very safe, holistic drug and needs to be treated as such.
Well, thank you so much. And stay with us because we still have so much more to come next on Insights. Welcome back. We're here with Sean Looney, the owner of the Dirty Elk. And the Dirty Elk is currently closed right now.
Correct. The provisional center is closed, correct.
And why did you get into this business?
Well, my dad has been a chiropractor for my whole life, and so I kind of grew up on the holistic side of medicine, and I believe in the holistic side of medicine versus the pharmaceutical side, which I don't believe is the right, path for medication. But so I grew up on the holistic side, and so I want to kind of progress that thought process out there that there is a better way.
So you do enjoy helping patients. How many people do you normally see a day?
Oh goodness, yeah, it was completely varied. Some days handful, other days, it was nonstop, in and out. But then, yeah, like other people have said, it's all walks of life. Down from 18 all the way up to I had an 80-year-old woman come in a walker.
So can you give me a little bit more of an explanation as to why you're currently not in operation?
Well, the township has to opt in first, and so they have to make that decision. And then state police also have their gray areas that they like to operate in as far as 5 patient and caregiver rules being applied to provisioning centers, which is incorrect.
And so now that your patients don't have anywhere to go, have you talked to any of them and find out what they're doing?
They reach out all the time, and I feel bad for everybody because I don't have an answer for them besides, I'm sorry, you have to travel downstate. It's the closest safe access point that I know of. And so they have had to go wherever it is that they can find it. And who knows where that is currently, because it's not here. It's not in a safe access point. It's wherever they can find it, so it's not safe.
And for you to operate, all of your medical marijuana had to go through extensive testing, am I right?
Correct, yeah.
So can you tell me a little bit about the kind of testing, the regulations that there are to make sure it is safe for the public?
Sure. It's a gas chromatograph, it's called. It's a machine. You have to be licensed to operate it, and basically test the cannabis for everything from pollutants as far as your chemicals and your pesticides and your nutrients, all the way down to molds, mildews, and even pests like spider mites it'll test for. So that range will tell you everything that's in the cannabis, even the potency of it. And so you know exactly what it is that you're partaking and putting into your system.
When are you expected to get the state licensing?
Given the township opts in, June 15th looks like is when they're doing the state approval for the applications.
So hopefully you could be up and running maybe by this summer?
Maybe by June, but everything still is up in the air, so it's all is anyone's best guess.
And what would you say to patients right now as they wait? Because summer is kind of a far away time from now.
For sure. Unfortunately, it's hard to give anyone any kind of advice in this area because you put people into a situation that it's uncontrolled. And so I can't say to somebody, reach out on Craigslist and put an ad out for a caregiver, because that puts yourself out there to whoever. And I can't give anyone that kind of recommendation because that doesn't feel right to me. It's not a safe access. It's whoever answers could answer, and who knows who it is or what they have to offer.
So what do you think is going to happen with the zoning laws here?
Well, it's all kind of up in the air currently. Word on the street is they're supposed to be allowing grows and processing centers to come in, but they're opting out of allowing provisioning centers to be in Old Town here, which is the main district of Atlanta, which doesn't make sense to me because, again, you're not allowing safe access in a centralized location. So to allow parts of it and not others, it doesn't make sense to me. So it's all up in the air and nobody knows until it happens.
So at your shop, how many different people did you see coming from how many areas of Northeast Michigan?
So yeah, pretty much everywhere. The whole eastern half of northern Michigan here has been kind of opted out of provisioning centers, and so we were the closest safe haven for anyone coming from that way. So all the way up from Sheboygan, Alpena, all the way down from Mayo, and beyond that would come up, and that's just the east side. Gaylord and Lewiston, pretty much the whole area we were a draw for to people come here to obviously get their medication, but then also they patronize the rest of town. There's all kinds of businesses, the Elk Crossing Cafe and other, Baklava shop down there that has seen a huge loss in business from people not coming here anymore. There's not that reason for them to come here and give them that business.
So do you believe that medical marijuana can help combat the opioid epidemic?
Oh, definitely, for sure. People go back on cannabis being a gateway drug to using opioids, and it's the exact opposite. Cannabis has only been viewed as a gateway drug because it's always been in the dark corners where all the other drugs are. These safe access points brings cannabis into the light, away from those dark corners, so you don't have that access to those, substances that you don't want access to. And so in the states that have seen decline, it is directly due to that. People will use a non-toxic alternative if it's available. It's so easy to get pharmaceutical opioids, as we were talking about earlier with the drugstore being, I could open next week as a pharmacy with no issues, no licensing, no bankroll, nothing. I can just put my business application in with them and they'll fund it. So with that being as easy as it is, that progresses into all the other illicit drug use, because as soon as you can't get that pharmaceutical opioid, you go to the street alternative, which is heroin, which is opium, which is morphine, which is all these other hard drugs that are the opioid epidemic.
And have you personally had a customer who was using opioids and then they made a switch to medical marijuana?
Dozens, all the time. People will come in and be praising the shop to be there because they were able to cut their meds in half or more, and so lots of customers, patients all the time would come in saying that they were able to cut down their pharmaceutical, medications, opioids, all the way down to Prozac, psych drugs, everything. You can take pretty much away all that stuff with cannabis, and so yeah, all the time.
And is there anything else you wanted to say?
Free the choice for people to be able to make whatever decision they want to make that has to do with their own health issues. If they want to choose cannabis over opioids, they should be able to do that. If they want to choose alcohol over all that stuff, then they should be able to do that. Even though it's not the healthiest option, it's their choice to be able to choose that. And so this is where we're at. Freedom of the people, of choice. Speak, people. Speak up.
Well, thank you so much for being here today. Your input is greatly appreciated.
Of course.
And up next, we talk to one local woman who has her medical marijuana card and she can't get her medicine when she needs it. Welcome back. We're joined by Krisha Heft, who is a medical marijuana card holder in the state of Michigan. Krisha, how are you doing?
Doing just great.
So what do you use your medical marijuana for?
I had a skull malformation I was born with, and when they did the surgery, they messed with my OBEX, which is my nausea vomiting center. And I have chronic nausea and vomiting now from it, and so I got my card so that I was able to maintain weight and all, not throw up.
So how long have you had your card for?
Since, well, probably 3 days after they made it legal.
And when you heard they made it legal, was that just a great moment for you to find there was an alternative to the harsher prescription medications?
Most definitely, most definitely. I had heard so many good things as far as in California, how it had been used for nausea and cancer patients, and how they had had such great luck with it working over Zofran or Phenergan. And it knocked out 2 birds with 1 stone because I suffer with chronic pain too. So instead of having to take pills, I could just use that, whether in edible form or whatever form there is, tincture.
And you would say this has helped you immensely.
Yes, I used to weigh about 110, and I always looked very, very skinny. Everybody would say I was anorexic, are you bulimic? And no, I just have a medical condition. And this has made me be able to eat, 3 times a day instead of maybe once every 3-4 days. So yeah, I'm very grateful for it.
So living here in Alpena, it's a little bit harder for you to get access to the medications you need, correct?
Correct.
So how do you go about getting your medical marijuana?
As of now, I'm not. They closed all the dispensaries up north. I have not had access to my medical marijuana since they closed all the dispensaries in Atlanta. I think it was in November, and they just closed everything. 3 hours is a long time to drive when you still have to pay for your medicine, which isn't exactly cheap, but it works. I can't go into my local pharmacy and say, hey, can you put this on my insurance? I have to drive 3 hours, that's $60 in gas, and then on top of that, pay for my medicine. It's just not a viable option.
So what are you doing now?
I'm back on the opiates, and I am back on all the medications.
And how does the opioids and all the other medications make you feel compared to the medical marijuana?
I would rather do the marijuana than take a bunch of pills where you have side effects. Long-term use, you can have liver problems, you can have kidney problems, you can get pancreatitis, you can get all of these things plus side effects. If one medication doesn't work, it could give you 10 side effects. Well, then you have to wait till that medication gets out of your system. And especially if they're going to use like nerve pain drugs and things like that, your Lyricas and stuff, those are still narcotics, but they change the chemistry in your brain. It's kind of a scary thought. What are the long-term side effects for that? Do we even know?
But right now you don't really have a choice because you can't go to Flint or even farther to
Yes.
get your medical marijuana.
Correct.
So what would you like to see change here in Alpena?
It would be nice to see a dispensary open up here. I'm not saying one on every corner, but maybe one. I think it could, give a little revenue to our county and our city because people are going to come from Rogers City who have their cards. They're going to come from Hillman who have their cards. Maybe they'll spend money other places too, but they'll have a closer place to be able to get their medication.
Besides yourself, do you know anybody who is affected also by not having a dispensary close by?
Yes, I do. Several people. They in turn took caregivers, but their caregivers are downstate. There's not enough up here. You're only allowed 5 plants per caregiver or 5 patients per caregiver. And there's just not enough caregivers to accommodate all of the patients. And also, how would you go about finding one? I mean, there's a lot of people who just don't know somebody who can do that. So they've chose caregivers in Flint or Saginaw, but then they are still not getting their medicine on time because they have to wait for that person to bring it to them because maybe they don't have the access to drive down there, they don't have a car, or they're too disabled to go that far. So it really makes it extremely hard on a lot of people, especially, there are elderly here in our town who have their cards. They're not going to travel 3 hours to get their medication. They're not going to go out and say, they're going to ask their friend, hey, I need some help here. They don't know where to go. A lot of people don't know where to go to even begin the process. So they rely on these dispensaries because it's more like a pharmacy to them. They know what they're getting. They know that this this kind's going to work for this anxiety, or this kind's going to help my arthritis, or this kind's going to help me sleep but also help my nausea and my pain. When you're in a dispensary, you have that option. When you get a caregiver, you don't necessarily know. You know what they tell you, but without it being tested, a caregiver doesn't have to go through the testing a dispensary does. A caregiver just grows the product, and then in turn gives it to their patients. That's great, but you don't know what you're getting because you're not in there with them when they're growing it or anything like that. I just think dispensaries seem like a more regulatory and safer way to do things.
And would you trust a caregiver that you didn't know very well personally?
That I didn't know, absolutely not. If it was somebody I knew, most definitely, but somebody I don't know, no, I wouldn't, because I don't know anything about what they do, how they do it, whether it's good for the ailments I have. It just kind of scary. I would just like I wouldn't go buy medicine off the street like a doctor would give me. It's safer to go that way. It's safer to know, yes, this has been tested at a facility. Yes, this is how much CBDs are in it, which help for pain and stuff, or this is how much THC is in it, or this is what it's used for. I know down in Grand Rapids at their dispensaries, it's completely listed. It'll say the strain, and it'll say used for anxiety or appetite, or and it tells you exactly what it's for. It's more like going to a pharmacy, which just seems like a safer option, to me anyways.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your story.
Thanks for having me.
And that's all the time we have for Insights. Join us again next week for more.
Insights into Northeast Michigan is produced by WBKB News. If you have any comments, suggestions, or topics you would like to see on a future show, please email WBKB News. This has been a production of Thunder Bay Broadcasting Corporation. All rights reserved.